Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is the conflict that has emerged as a result of the Polish death camp law. I will discuss the issue and even show you the law. Poland is defending its honor, and that is why, according to Polish law, it is now illegal, yes, illegal, to use the terms Polish death camp and Polish concentration camp. The bill passed by both houses of parliament sets a punishment of 3 years imprisonment for defaming Poland by using these terms in any way other than in research environments. The claim is that even though located in Poland, the Nazi camps were run by Nazis, not by Poles, and so Poles, too, were victims. The claim is that Poles, too, died at the hands of the Nazis. This issue has been plaguing Poland since the end of the war. When discussing World War II, many people fall into the trap of lumping all camps into one category, calling them concentration camps. But for the Nazis, camps came in different levels of internment and purpose. Among them were prisoner of war camps, and many Poles were interred in those camps. Then there were labor camps and death camps. The Nazis created 460 camps in Poland itself. The term concentration camp is an overarching general term, but it does not fully explain the nature of a death camp. There were 6 Nazi death camps. They were built with one purpose only, just one purpose, to murder as many Jews as possible. All 6 camps were located in Poland. Their names, chosen for the cities in which they were located, they are Chełmno, Majdanek, Sobibor, Treblinka, Belzec, and most notorious of all, Auschwitz, which is the German name. The Polish name is Oświęcim. Auschwitz was a death camp which almost defies classification. More than any death camp, it was an entire camp system. That system contained not only the labor and death camps, but also dozens of plants and factories, including ball-bearing plants, IG Farben plant, a Krupp plant. Auschwitz I was a prisoner of war camp where Polish prisoners were held. Today, the official camp museum is dedicated to telling the story of Polish prisoners of war. Only one exhibit, housed in a single barrack, is dedicated to what happened to the million Jews murdered in Auschwitz. Unless you venture to Auschwitz II, also known as Birkenau, you would never see any relic of their lives or deaths. Birkenau was gargantuan, the biggest of all big camps in the Nazi camp empire. It was a death factory. It was dauntingly huge, so large that you cannot see the perimeter. All you see are chimneys, chimney after chimney after chimney. Birkenau was pilfered after the war by locals who stripped the barracks and used the wood for heating their homes. All that remains are brick chimneys and a handful of brick barracks, and the remains of 4 destroyed crematoria, one of which was blown up by the Jews in the revolt. Death camps needed no amenities. Jews were led off the trains and murdered within minutes of their arrival. They may have waited for days, only a mile away from the camp, in cattle cars that transported them, but once herded off the platform, they marched directly to their death. All 6 death camps utilized gas as their modus operandi. Different gas was used in different murder factories. Zyklon B was used in Auschwitz, Belzec, and Majdanek. Carbon monoxide was used in Sobibor, Treblinka, and Chełmno. These camps were efficient factories of death. The product they produced was death. Their business model was speedy, streamlined, and cheap. The camps were built to murder Jews, all the Jews of Europe. Anyone else who died there was a collateral target. On the eve of World War II, as Hitler marched into Poland, there were 3.3 million Jews living there. 1 in every 3 people in Warsaw was Jewish. Jews were 10% of the total population. Only 100 to 200,000 Jews of Poland survived the murder machine. In other terms, only 3% survived the war. It all began in 1933 in the German camp Dachau. That's when and where the Nazis first began murdering. undesirables, as they were called. They called it euthanasia killings, as they murdered emotionally and physically disabled Germans. There was a tremendous outcry against the murders by the citizens of Germany, and the Nazis stopped what they were doing. And then they moved on to Poland. The lessons the Nazis learned was to locate killing centers far from Germany. It was decided that to solve the Jewish problem by building their death camps in Poland, Nazis moved Jews by paying national Polish and German railroads for their trains and tracks, built their camps in Poland, and enlisted Poles to work. There are three major constituents in the Holocaust. There are the perpetrators, there are the bystanders, and there are the victims. The Poles want to blur the lines between these groups, and that is why this new law was enacted. Perpetrators want to become bystanders. Bystanders want to become victims. By changing your position, you relieve yourself of culpability. Most Poles were bystanders. Some Poles were victims. Some were collaborators. It's easier to morally justify what you did or did not do by changing your status. It's easier to explain to your children and your grandchildren. No one wants to admit to their children that they watched or aided in the murder of millions of people, some of them even in their town and village. Not all Poland collaborated. Of course not. They didn't collaborate with the Nazis. Nearly 7,000 Poles have been honored for saving Jews. They are called the righteous Gentiles, and each one of them has a tree planted in their name at Yad Vashem, the International Memorial for the Holocaust in Jerusalem. These citizens of Poland endangered their lives and the lives of their families to save Jews. There are numerous Poles who declined the honor for fear of backlash against them and their families in Poland. More Poles saved Jews than any other country, but more Poles collaborated with the Nazis than any other country. Wanting to blur the role that Poland played in the Nazi death machine is understandable, but it's also wrong. It is truly a revision of history. So few people have actually read this Polish law about death camp terminology and punishment. That is a fact, and it's stunning. Unfortunately, it has not stopped many people from pontificating about the law. This text was adopted by both houses of the Polish parliament and was provided in Polish by the Polish government to Israel's foreign ministry and was translated by Israel's foreign ministry on January 31st, 2018. This is the entire law as it was passed. The Institute of National Remembrance, Commission for the Prosecution of Crimes Against the Polish Nation Act, the War Graves and Cemeteries Act, the Museums Act, the Liability of Collected Subjects for Acts Prohibited under Punishment Act, the Prohibition of Propagating Communism or Other Totalitarian Systems through the Names of Buildings, Facilities, and Areas of Public Use Act. 6. Article 55 shall be followed with Articles 55A and 55B reading. Article 55A1. Whoever claims publicly and contrary to the facts that the Polish nation or the Republic of Poland is responsible or co-responsible for Nazi crimes committed by the Third Reich, as specified in Article 6 of the Charter of International Military Tribunal enclosed to the International Agreement for the Prosecution and Punishment of the Major War Criminals of the European Axis, signed in London on 8 August 1945, or for other felonies that constitute crimes against peace, crimes against humanity, or war crimes, or whoever otherwise grossly diminishes the responsibility of the true perpetrators of said crimes shall be liable to a fine or imprisonment of up to 3 years. The sentence shall be made public. 2. If the act specified in Clause 1 is committed unintentionally, the perpetrator shall be liable to a fine or a restriction of liberty. 3. No offense is committed if the criminal act specified in Clauses 1 and 2 is committed in the course of the one's artistic or academic activity. Article 55B, irrespective of the regulations in force at the location of committing the criminal act, this act shall apply to Polish and foreign citizens in the event of committing the offenses referred to it in Article 55 and 55A. As you've noticed, the law is a series of amendments to existing laws. Legislating speech is extremely dangerous. Fining someone or imprisoning them for saying these terms, Polish death camp, is harsh. There is no doubt that the Polish High Court will see this and send it back to Parliament to amend the current law. Coming up, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. I want to continue in the same vein with the same topic, only I want to share the Polish point of view. We will examine 2 letters to the editor from Polish ambassadors explaining the law and its purpose. One from the Polish ambassador to D.C. that ran in the New York Times, and one penned by the Polish ambassador to the United Kingdom that ran in the British Guardian. The first letter to the New York Times was posted on February 1st, 2018, and was in the print edition February 2nd under the headline, Poland and the Holocaust, the Ambassador's View. To the editor, regarding Poland's Holocaust blame bill, editorial January 30th. Poland is one of the principal guardians of the memory of the victims of the Holocaust and protector of sites sanctified by the blood of innocent Jewish and Polish victims of Nazi German terror. It is a great injustice that Poland, the first country to resist German aggression during World War II, and a country that suffered dearly at the hands of the sinister German occupier, has been accused of being responsible in part for the Holocaust. Let me be clear, there was no systematic complicity in the Holocaust, not by the Polish nation or by the Polish state. Individuals, all throughout German-occupied Europe, guided by coercion, fear, and anti-Semitism, opportunism, and greed, collaborated in one way or another with the German occupiers and committed heinous acts, and in occupied Poland as well. But the Polish underground state and resistance carried out death sentences against collaborators and blackmailers, and Poland never formed a collaborationist government. Every country could have done more during World War II to save Jews, but only one country bears responsibility for the state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews and millions more non-Jews, Nazi Germany. It is reprehensible to say otherwise, to blame any other country or people for the Holocaust. Piotr Wilkowicz, Washington. The writer is Poland's ambassador to the United States. Second up is a letter to the Guardian from the Polish ambassador to the United Kingdom. It's entitled, Polish Holocaust Law is About the Truth. Poland's ambassador, Arkady Rogowski, defends his country's new legislation related to the fight against the term Polish camps in foreign media. I was surprised to see the public appeal by Polish opposition politicians and intellectuals about the amended Act on the Institute of National Remembrance, letters 6 of February. British readers deserve to learn about the Polish government's position. The law concerns only the protection of the Polish state and nation. Contrary to what its critics say, it does not protect individual Polish citizens who committed crimes against Jews, nor does it ban anyone, especially the survivors, from speaking about the cruelty and injustice which they experienced. We often see why this matter must be regulated by law. It is because the long-standing educational and governmental efforts, including by one of the letter's signatories, the former foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, have not brought about sufficient effect. It is disgraceful that Polish prisoners of Auschwitz-Birkenau who fight against the term Polish camps in the foreign media must do so individually as civil plaintiffs in courts to protect the good name of their nation. Meanwhile, the Polish state has not been able to work out effective legal solutions to support them. The new law does not set a precedent. Legislation penalizing, for example, Holocaust denial is also reflected in the legal systems of other European countries. According to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of Holocaust denial, this is not only a denial that the Holocaust took place, but also a distortion of historical truth about its perpetrators and its circumstances. We believe that the truth about German death camps and the cruel reality of German occupation of Poland is part of the Holocaust history, and see the new law as complementary to the existing world regulation on Holocaust denial. Arkady Rogowski, Polish ambassador to the United Kingdom. It is important to hear their points of view and how they interpret the law, which is to protect the honor of Poland. There is no doubt that the death camps were built by and administered by Nazis. The murder process was Nazi-directed. The Poles had a different role, and in general, it was not in the death camps. There was tremendous anti-Semitism and Jew hatred in Poland, even before and especially during the war. Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 3 cartoons today. They're all similar in their theme. They're about Iran. The first cartoon is from January 3rd, 2018, and it is by Morin, and from Morin Toons Syndicate. 2 Ayatollahs are standing on the balcony looking at throngs of people. The huge sign reads, "Make Iran Great Again." One of the Ayatollahs says, "Uh-oh." Mimicking Trump and America is a big deal in Iran especially because of the groundswell of political support and the upset that Trump had over the establishment in the United States. They do not want that in Iran. The next cartoon is from January 4th, 2018. It's by Ariel, and it's from The State. Again, 2 Ayatollahs are on the balcony looking at throngs of people. The sign below reads, "Death to the Great Satan." One of the men tells the other, "Something tells me they don't mean America anymore." This last cartoon is by Bach, and it was published in Creators Syndicate. Once again, 2 Ayatollahs on the balcony, and the crowd down below is holding a huge banner. This one reads, "Death to Khamenei." One of the men says to the other, "Quick, tell the White House to send another pallet of cash." The second is dialing on his cell phone and gets a recording. The message reads, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Kerem Shalom is the commercial border crossing between Israel and Gaza. Kerem Shalom is the path through which thousands of trucks travel from Israel into Gaza, delivering essential goods, including medicine, clothes, and food. And it's through that crossing that Hamas continually attempts to smuggle in contraband, all kinds of contraband, including building materials that can be used to make tunnels and even explosive materials. Early one Sunday morning at Kerem Shalom, Israel discovered explosive supplies hidden in medical supplies shipments. Unfortunately, this is typical, using supplies whose purpose is to heal civilians as cover for the material that will murder innocents is a tactic often utilized by Hamas. Iranian leadership has made it clear that they are regional leaders and they do not plan on backing down because of the international pressure. The advisor to the Grand Ayatollah Khamenei, Ali Akbar Velayati, was quoted in the official news agency Fars saying, and I'm quoting here, "Iran's influence in the region is inevitable, and to remain a key player in the region, this influence will continue." He continued, "Iran has no intention to abandon the oppressed nations in the region. Our presence in Syria, Iraq, Palestine, and Lebanon is in coordination with the governments of these countries. Iran is bringing its A game to the region. They are expanding their influence." An 8-year-old boy, a Jewish boy in France, was beaten up and kicked by a gang. He was wearing a kippah. It was a hate crime. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, tweeted, "Each time a citizen is attacked because of his age, appearance, or religion, it is the whole nation that is attacked." There has been a worrisome rash of anti-Semitism in Europe. Combine that with the threats of terror in France and attacks against the Jewish community and individual Jews, and the situation is extremely dangerous. French political leadership always says the right things. The police are starting to take all of this very, very seriously. There's a real risk that this targeting of Jews is on the upswing. The Louvre, that famous museum in France, has hung 31 paintings in their main exhibit that were looted by the Nazis between 1940 and 1945 when they controlled France. Of the 45,000 pieces of art that were looted by the Nazis, some 2,000 pieces remain unclaimed. Most of the artwork was looted from Jewish families. Over the years, there's been a negative, almost evil narrative in which renowned museums were thought to have profited from looted art. They displayed them and had them as part of their collections, knowing that the provenance of Nazi looted art was questionable. In some cases, museums even argued in court against Jewish families and claimed that they, the museum, were the true owners. This is a very real and genuine move by the Louvre to help resuscitate the reputations of museums that have looted art in their collections. The IDF spokesman, Brigadier General Ronen Minalis, wrote a column that was published and then broadcast to multiple Arabic media outlets in Lebanon and Israel, including Al-Masdar, Sputnik, the Voice of Lebanon, and Israeli Arabic Radio. The column, Minalis wrote that Lebanon has become a launching pad for Iran and Hezbollah, and that Israel will not let that continue. He writes, and I'm quoting here, Through the actions and inaction of the Lebanese authorities, Lebanon is turning into one big missile factory while much of the international community looks the other way. It's no longer about transfers of arms, money, or advice. De facto, Iran has opened a new branch, the Lebanon branch. Iran is here. Iran and Hezbollah are concurrently trying to build a precision missile factory. The IDF spokesman continued, "One of every 3 or 4 homes in southern Lebanon is a command post position, weapons warehouse, or hiding place for Hezbollah. We know these assets and will know how to attack them accurately if necessary. The future of the people of Lebanon is to be pawns in the hands of the dictator from Iran. Those same heads of villages, towns, and cities and government institutions who see what is going on and say nothing are also to blame," unquote. The response from Hezbollah was expected. They called the premise of the column arrogant and said that Hezbollah would be able to defeat the Israeli army. Menalis is convinced that southern Lebanon is a powder keg about to explode, and responsibility for the explosion lies with those who let it happen. The message was heard, but it was not heeded. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is continuing his opposition to U.S. policy. Abbas continues to attack the United States by saying that the U.S. cannot force them into an agreement and that the U.S. is not to be trusted as an honest mediator. While delivering a speech, Abbas said that the U.S. cannot force Palestinians to sign a peace deal. They cannot impose a peace treaty. Abbas held up his pen as a prop and said, "This is our pen, and we are the only ones who can sign." It was an effective metaphor and a strong symbolic gesture. Abbas continued on saying that the Palestinians will only sign a deal if it includes a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza, and with East Jerusalem as the capital. It should include all the areas within the pre-67 borders. Abbas is also facing charges that he wiretapped his opponents and allies in order to keep tabs on them. The surveillance was done by the CIA, and the intelligence was then handed over to Abbas. One of the results of the new Polish law restricting speech and prohibiting the use of the term Polish death camp is backlash of anti-Semitism. For example, a Polish radio journalist named Bogdan Zalewski posted on his Facebook page the following: "Poles, we are at war. We are at war with the Jews. Not for the first time in our history. We can find ourselves in a state of absolute isolation that completely exhausts us down to annihilation. In my opinion, it is necessary for Poles to be aware and to work on the development of the national spirit." At war with the Jews? Another TV host and guest called the Nazi camps Jewish death camps. The anti-Semitism is becoming pervasive, Peter Kadlitz, a leader of the Jewish community, said in JTS interview. "In my worst nightmares," he said, "I never expected to hear jokes about Auschwitz, Jews, and gas chambers on state-owned television." Much damage has already been done as a result of this law. Poland did not anticipate the harsh worldwide response their law has received. Neither did they expect that Israel would have reacted so dramatically. Poland miscalculated. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. Did you know that when we were growing up, it was a given that in the Jewish community, no one would buy a German car? It was just one of those rules. One shouldn't help the Germans. The first time I went to Israel and I saw all the taxis, they were Mercedes. I was shocked. The Mercedes taxis were part of a deal that was made between Israel and Germany to provide cars at great prices as reparations for war crimes. Volkswagen was a project of Hitler. He wanted a car for the people. Actually, Volkswagen means the people's car in German. Volk is Volk in German, which the V is actually pronounced as an F, the people. Mercedes was the car of the officers in the German army, and many of the Nazi trucks were actually Mercedes also. Other than their names, companies like Krupp, Volkswagen today are not the same as the companies during World War II. But during the war, these companies and many others had factories that used Jewish slave labor in Nazi camps. Today, the attitude is different. Part of the change has to do with distance from the historical events and the passing of survivors. Part has to do with Germany taking responsibility for their actions, and actually being a very friendly nation to Israel and Jews. And part has to do with Israel's leading the way to accepting Germany as an ally of the Jews. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.